It is HPR and All Things Considered. I'm Dave Lawrence. Grateful that you are with us today as we welcome a noted drummer. As you may or may not recall, I played a little drums a long time ago when I was a kid. And this one is appearing for his first time ever as a guest, I might add. And a new album from Novo Combo, the 80s pop rock band, brings him to us. They've got a new album out now, 45 West 55th. Here's a track from it, Don't Throw Your Love Away. We are thrilled to talk with their drummer. You may know yourself this cat from his times, that's with an S, as a member of the original Santana, then later on with Carlos, including he did the historic drum solo at Woodstock 69. How's that? And a bunch of early 70s Santana appearances here in the islands, too. It is Michael Shrieve joining us today. Michael, aloha, my brother. Grateful to welcome you and sending you a huge thank you or mahalo.
Aloha to you, too. Thank you for having me.
You're so welcome, man. So welcome. So first, for folks listening, you can imagine it's All Things Considered. It's a bunch of different kinds of musical tastes, I imagine, of the people who are listening. So to help them understand a little on the Novo Combo with a little 411, give us a little idea, catch folks up on this project and this new record from you guys.
Well, the idea for doing the record came from the bass player, Stephen Dees, who is the main guy that I put the group with in the early 80s, put the group together with in the early 80s in New York City. And he was going through a bunch of old material and found some tracks that were some tracks that we recorded that were on the album, the first album that we did, but they were demos. But they had something to offer for folks who were fans of Novo Combo, that they might want to hear a different take or a different presentation of the same song. And so he presented that to us as a group, and then the idea was let's make like half new music and half older music and try to find a combination of music that fits well together and that we would feel proud to release.
That's really hip. And, you know, new albums are also kind of fascinating for us as a outlet, because here we are in this world of streaming and so many things like that, and we get a lot of different kinds of people talking about them. So this is coming out for Novo Combo's thing on a label of some kind, Wild Roots Records, and as you can imagine, sometimes folks don't have a label. So in this case, has Wild Roots Records, have they paid you guys to record the material? Are you compensated for the album in some way, or is this just something you guys are doing?
The Wild Roots is actually Stephen Dees' label.
Okay.
Stephen and his wife, Patricia Dees.
See?
And they've used that as a vehicle for their productions down in Florida.
Sure.
And they've had some success with some wonderful blues releases.
Oh.
And so they've taken all this on themselves. So they're, you know, who knows if there's ever going to be any money, but they're the ones that have been doing most of the work, all of the work, really.
Sure. No, well,
in making this happen.
that makes sense. And people come up with some cool names and do their own labels. Excuse me, as you just wisely pointed out there. Now, on to the radio kind of thing. Now, we're talking to you about it, and it's true. We talk to a lot of different cats. Soul Asylum, War, Matis Yahoo, Foghat, all kind of Kathy Griffin. So it's a wide range. Now, what kinds of radio stations are playing this new Novo Combo stuff? What's going on with that, Michael?
I have no idea.
Oh, you don't know? Okay, no problem. And now, how are the fans? This is the really interesting part, because we always think about ourselves like CD, vinyl, cassette, download, or just streaming it. How are most people accessing the new album?
Well, it's pretty fresh out, so we don't have a lot of data yet to what's going on. But I would say, it is on all streaming platforms.
Okay.
And there is a CD available. There's no vinyl available. So there have been, we have a website, novocombo.com, and also Facebook, Novo Combo on Facebook. And people can access buying the CD. And then, of course, they can go to any of the streaming platforms to stream the record as well. So I'm not sure what people are choosing to do. I think that, for any kind of band like this band that had two albums out,
Sure.
um, and never really took off. But we did have fans that really loved the band, and so this kind of project is for them with always the outside hope that new people will discover the band and enjoy it. It to me it has a very 80s sound, but it's also it's a good sound. I mean, it's not like a hair band sound,
Right.
but it's for people who loved the band back then, they'll love this record.
You're super serving, and that's exactly what guys like you have to do with the super fans and the people who are like that. And it leads to the question, two final questions about the record. Is there going to be a tour? You guys going to go out and do something with this?
No, there's no chance of that.
No
I
chance
mean,
of a tour. Okay.
I think that's completely unrealistic to think that that would be
Possible.
something that would be possible.
Okay. And then the other one is, and this is always a fun one, and this is, we get so many different answers on this one. And, excuse me. One of the things that I think brings the most unusual flavor to when someone puts out a new record, when yourself, Michael Shrieve, when was the last time that you bought an album? And what was it, and when did you buy it?
Oh, good question. I still buy some vinyl of music that I really enjoy, and people send me vinyl as well. I'm a big fan of exploring new music in a multitude of genres. So I don't buy everything that I discover,
Sure.
but I'm a big fan of this group called Sun Lux. They're like a avant-garde pop group, one of the most talented that I've heard in many years. I know I've bought vinyl of theirs. Also, an artist by the name of Amon Tobin, I'm a big fan of. He's more of an experimental electronic sort of guy. And I bought vinyl of that because I know it's going to sound incredible sonically.
Wow. Well,
So
and
that's
so you're buying stuff, and when? What's the timeline on when these purchases went down?
Oh, I think Montauban was not too long ago. I think Sun Lux probably a year ago. My listening process and I really I hate Spotify as a musician, but I love those streaming services that as being a library where I can discover music. And Bandcamp is the same thing to me, although that's a better way to do it because the artists get paid. But I've been big into like a Nordic jazz scene lately, listening to and discovering Norwegian jazz musicians and Scandinavian jazz musicians.
Wow.
And so I'm always really enjoying discovering new music. And I realize that as musicians, sometimes we get, and I'm always making new music too. So I have a Bandcamp page where I put out a bunch of new stuff. And what I realize is in exploring Bandcamp, there's so many good artists out there in different genres. And as a musician, it makes you remember why you got into music in the first place, because you love music.
Right.
And so that after realizing that, I realized I have to make time to listen to music more rather than just make it, you know?
No, and you're supporting by, and you named people who are newer artists too, who you were getting the stuff from. Well, those are very different answers you've provided too, compared to some of the
Yeah. And I'll buy people's work on Bandcamp all the time.
Oh, that's cool. Well, that streaming that you were mentioning, it's another vehicle for learning about, like you said, learning about artists and kind of paraphrasing. You can also learn about older artists that you like. Like for myself, when I was young, I used to play the drums a bit, and John Bonham used to be my very favorite guy in the absolute world. And when you go on the YouTube, you can stream just about every Led Zeppelin show practically. So you can kind of, you know what I'm saying? You can get real close to John's work. So as I think about the diverse cats that you're also associated with, you have any opinion about John Bonham? Any stories? Anything cool you can share?
Well, man, I never got a chance to meet John Bonham, but I did meet um, Jimmy Page about a year ago, and he told me right out front. He said Bonzo was a great big fan of yours, and so that was meant a lot to me.
Whoa.
Yeah,
That's
and
happening right there.
yeah, right. So, and one of the other good things, like to elaborate on your talking about YouTube, is one of the coolest things that's available are isolated tracks.
Yeah, yeah, right.
So you can hear isolated Bonzo tracks or
Yeah,
isolated Ringo tracks or
right.
isolated all kinds of different musicians' tracks, and that's a really enlightening experience as well.
Yeah, now I've done that with him too, right? And you get to hear like Bonzo's like kick pedal and like the sound of every little bit of his of what he was doing. Well, what a great thing for Jimmy. High fives that Jimmy told you that. That's gigantic. That's kind of funny because one time his Deborah is her name. His kid sister was on the show, and I'm a huge funk fan, and I've always loved, and I'm a huge Bonham fan, so you can imagine. I just wanted to. I said to her, I was like, can you tell me the name? Was he into James Brown when he was, and she was like, oh, he loved Clyde Stubblefield. And when she came out with that, I said, oh, wow. I was like,
Yeah, yeah, you can hear that.
totally. But I'm just saying, I knew it, but to hear her say it was just,
Yeah, right,
to
right.
have her say it. I didn't set her up. I didn't say Clyde's name. I just said JB. And,
Oh, great,
and she
great.
popped that. So I just thought I'd give that back to you. He had some tasty taste in addition to Mr. Shrieve that we've got here. And then another couple of questions here for you. When I think about before the Santana thing, which is obviously a lot of people listening, that's how they could connect to you. That especially the one filmed thing. But your the Wikipedia at least, maybe there's some stories. When I first moved here, I got to sit with BB King for half an hour in the Blaisdell Arena. I'll never forget it. It says on your Wikipedia, before joining Carlos's band, you had the chance to back some huge blues legends, and he's named there.
Yes, I played in my teens. I played in an all black nightclub. I was part of the house band there, and it was called Nairobi Lounge in East Palo Alto, California. And we were the house band, and we had a singer. We would do R&B stuff. On the weekends, they'd bring in bigger singers, but in during the week, we had a singer. It's like gun 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 gun. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Shell Nitro. But we had backup singers like Etta James and BB King, and these kind of people that were out on the circuit, and I was the drummer in the band. I was the only white person in the club, and so it gave me a fantastic opportunity to play that kind of music because I loved R&B music and I loved jazz. That was kind of my thing. I didn't consider myself a rock drummer as much as I did those other genres.
When you compare you got the audition at the Fillmore to get into Santana. Then you've got playing at Woodstock, and you're in the thing, like I said, I think most human beings listening might know you from, is the Santana Woodstock performance, and they get to Soul Sacrifice, which features the big drum solo. And there is Mike Shrieve, who is like, I don't even think old enough to drink or drive a car practically. And there you are. So of the two things, auditioning for him or Woodstock, which gets you like a great feeling going inside of you when I mention those choices?
Well, that would have to be Woodstock. I didn't audition for Santana at the Fillmore, but I was sitting in with a group that Michael Bloomfield and Al Cooper had together, and Stephen Stills.
Oh, it's like an informal audition, sort of like not
Well,
really.
no, it wasn't an audition. I just sat in,
Okay.
and then their manager and bass player were there, and later backstage they mentioned that they enjoyed my playing and they were considering getting another drummer. And I was familiar with the band. They were very popular in the Bay Area, but they didn't have a record out. And I never heard back from them until I walked into a studio that I used to frequent to get time for my own bands. And that's the first time I met Carlos and the other guys, and they asked me to jam. At the end of that evening, they did ask me to join the band.
Wow.
And so that was, of course, it was really exciting. It was a great experience because we rehearsed every day. It was very serious, and so it was very cool. It was a good place for me to be. But of course, Woodstock was Woodstock, and there's nothing that matches that.
The for yourself, just a little piece of it, if you don't mind. Like, do you remember arriving there, or are there any actual like physical moments where you can take us, like walk us through a moment in time there that kind of sticks out to just the surreal aspect of showing up at something where it just ends up being that large of a scene, maybe trying to get to the bathroom, maybe another star you meet over the course of your time?
Yeah. So what we started hearing a couple of days before the festival, news reports on major channels, and that the traffic going up to this place for the festival was getting backed up, and it was so backed up, so many people were going that the roads couldn't handle it, and people started leaving their cars on the highway, on the throughway, and so that's a big deal. And then so we weren't able to drive into the festival. We all the artists went to a Holiday Inn in the area, and from there we get on a helicopter and fly into the site. And so there were some of the guys in Santana and Janis Joplin and Grateful Dead, Jerry Garcia on the helicopter that I was in. And so everybody was, once you flew over that audience and see the size of it, it was like nothing we ever saw before. So, and then, you arrive down there behind the stage, and everybody's hanging out. So, all these people, though, from the Bay Area, like the Grateful Dead, Janis Joplin, these groups, we already knew from playing around in the Fillmore and the Bay Area. So,
Airplane, those kind of people.
Definitely.
I get it. So it wasn't like a real standout thing. So it wasn't like, so you're saying, if I have it right, or maybe I have it wrong, you're saying that for the average person listening, just because you flew with Janis Joplin in a helicopter, she was sort of a familiar face to you. It wasn't like a superstar encounter kind of thing.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
No, that figures. And then final note, because I'm sensitive to your time, I don't want to keep you too long. The final questions I got to ask it. We're Hawaii. Diamond Head is such a very, very special place, and other places you probably got into the arena too. What is, when you think back to Hawaii?
Yeah.
What touches you the most, or is a fun story, a cool one, something you love to remember?
Yeah, we were gearing up to play a festival in Hawaii. Diamond Head was at the Diamond Head Festival back then. It was at Diamond Head, and we rented a beautiful home where the band was living in for a while, and we set up the gear as we usually do, like in the living room, as we did like a week before Woodstock in Woodstock. But it was a really wonderful period. I remember it. People like Jose Feliciano were coming over and jamming, and it was just a really it's really a highlight of my life, that week or two that we spent in Hawaii there in that home, and the festival. I wish I could spend more time in Hawaii. I really do, but that was a really good memory.
Oh, that's cool, brother. And I've heard Neil talk about it. He's mentioned it to us, because I was thinking as you were talking, I'm like, oh yeah, I'm like, who told us about the rented house? Because I think the house burnt down eventually or something like that.
Oh, did it? Wow, that was a great place.
Yeah, I can have that part wrong, but I remember Neil, because it was like 20 years ago, Neil was telling stories about that anyway. But no, that's great. Those are huge memories, and and I'm rooting for you on the record. Everybody, I mean, we just had Soul Asylum on, and they blew my mind, because most people haven't been buying records, and Dave Perner, their frontman, just started rattling off these packages of records he had just been buying. So it was nice to have you kind of get in there with your own support for folks. And if people want to support these guys, it's Novo Combo, and they've got their own new record in the mix, 45 West 55th, and we took a listen to a track on the front end of this, Don't Throw Your Love Away. You can look forward your favorite streaming services Michael and I were talking about. And
I've also got a solo album out as well called Drums of Compassion That's a whole nother ball game than Novo Combo, but that came out in May, and so that's one you might want to look out for too, called Drums of Compassion.
I believe I have this right. MichaelShrieve.com. Great place to get that 411, yeah?
Actually, no. The place would be 7D Media, which is Trey Gunn's label from King Crimson. But on the other hand, it's also available on all the streaming services.
Okay. Your website doesn't, that isn't the web address? Forgive me. I'll edit that if that's not in there.
It's not on that one
Okay.
particular, no.
Okay. Got it. All right. Well, so folks can look for it, 45 West 55th. Is that where you live or something? Is that your address?
Yeah, that's where we put the band together.
Okay.
That was my apartment in New York City between 5th and 6th Avenue. And that's where we all hung out. And so that's why they named it that.
Man, when I see that, it just makes me think of getting a real tasty knish or something like that over there. Did you have fun today with us? I hope this was okay.
Had a great time. A real pleasure.
All right, Michael, you're a hero. When I was a little kid, my mom was a hippie. She was playing that first record nonstop. She had the Woodstock records with the little naked babies on them. She had the movie playing all the time. So I give you a big hug and a high five, and you stay safe, my brother.
You too, man. You take good care.
Aloha, bro.
Thank you.
Bye.